Welcome to this round of Ed Talks by Canam. I'm your host, Ganga Dandapani, Senior Vice President at Canam. My last Ed Talk was with a Senior Advisor for Workforce Initiatives at Southwest Ontario. Today, I'm with Jessica Morrow, International Admissions and Recruitment Officer at one of Canada's top universities, who's also a Canadian government-certified Regulated International Student Immigration Advisor, in short, RISIA. We will talk about what is a Canadian university education about, and since she works with Carleton, her references would be about Carleton. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Ganga. Thank you so much for having me.
And we are delighted to have you here. Tell us about your awesome connection with Carleton University and how you've been rocking the international education scene.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, I am a RISIA, but I'm also an International Admissions and Recruitment Officer at Carleton University. But perhaps more important, I'm also a proud graduate alum. So I've been involved with Carleton for many years. I don't need to tell you how many years, but a long time. So I'm really passionate about the education that Carleton offers because I myself am a beneficiary. But since rejoining Carleton as a staff member, I've been engaged in international recruitment, working kind of globally to help spread the good word about the benefits of international and Canadian education. So I'm happy to continue to do that today while working with Canam.
Yeah, thanks. Jessica, how has being a certified RISIA helped you to promote Canadian education? Any interesting examples you have to share?
Yeah, it's been, not too many recruiters have this additional designation. So it is a little bit niche, but it's been really helpful because it allows me to engage maybe in more meaningful conversations with students and families that are a little bit more nuanced, maybe about topics of work and what's allowed for a student while they're studying, kind of staying within all the legal bounds of their study permit. We can also engage in deeper conversations about what if I have a spouse or kids? Sometimes a student's situation isn't just as cut and dry as I'm a 17-year-old coming from high school, so we can talk about more complex situations as well. So, because we know that the experience of coming to Canada is, or can be, quite complicated. So, working with partners like Canam is great, but it's also been really nice for me to engage in those conversations about the study permit application process, funds, housing, all of those things that I'm able to do as a RISIA.
Yeah. So Carleton University and Canam, it's like a dynamic duo.
I think so.
How has Canam been supportive in reaching out to quality international students seeking a top academic experience?
Oh, the support that we get from Canam is just absolutely invaluable. Like you said, we're a dynamic duo. We've been working together for years and years and years. So that support comes through the fairs that you host annually, and we're always happy to attend and support those and meet many of the international students that you bring into those. But then seeing the support that you continue to offer students both during their research phase, because there's so many options out there. So support in the research has been really helpful. And then supporting the students through their application process. We see the help that the students get through Canam there as so important. And then while the application has been submitted, every morning I come into my inbox most mornings, and I see emails from your Canam staff asking me to check in on this application or that application. Here's some documents. So it just demonstrates to me the amount of engagement and dedication that your counselors are showing to the students, that you're monitoring and making sure that their applications are moving forward, but then also keeping on the institutions to make sure that we are keeping the Canam applications front of mind as well. So it's really wraparound support from start to finish. So we're really, really happy to see that in our partners, especially with Canam.
Yeah, thank you. And you spoke about the fairs that we host. We're going to be hosting one in April, which is called the Canadian Universities and Colleges Admissions Workshop. And I know that you're going to be there, isn't it?
Yes. I'm very excited to be back in India in April, and I'll be attending a couple of the cities, so watch for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jessica, with your Canadian education wisdom, spill the maple syrup on how Canada and Carleton stays cool and open to new students in the current global landscape, and any insider tips for new applicants?
Great question. So the maple syrup, what is it? Yeah, we know that there are some happenings right now. I know Ganga did a really great video a couple of weeks ago about the recent announcements that are happening to the changes of the study permit process and how Canada will be welcoming international students. So there might be some worry out there, but I'm glad to be here today to just reassure you that Canada is still welcoming international students. Carleton is still welcoming international students, as we always have. So as you know, there is a current pause with study permit processing right now. So our message to students really is just keep applying, moving forward. So if you haven't applied to your institution of choice yet, do it, go for it, because we want you to have everything in place so that when that study permit processing opens, you are ready to go and have everything that you need. Another change that we are anticipating is that, at least in the province of Ontario, where once you might have been able to hold multiple offers, maybe accept a couple of offers while you kind of figured it out, continue to research, we're anticipating now that you will have to make your choice earlier. And this will be tied to the letter of attestation, which I know Ganga has introduced to you before. So it'll be really important to do your research, talk to the universities you're interested in, attend sessions, take meetings, so that when the time comes, you feel confident and prepared to make that choice of your preferred university. So now is not the time to sleep on it. It's time to really engage and be active in this research and application process. And get excited. This is, although an overwhelming time, I remember the days, it is also a time that is meant for excitement and new beginnings and self-discovery. So, really try to focus on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely spot on, Jessica. Now is the time. You just have to hurry up and get moving. Absolutely right. Now, let's talk Ottawa, the city of opportunities. Now,
Yes.
So what's the scoop on international students finding part-time gigs? Any hotspots or industries where they can sprinkle their magic?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're asking me about Ottawa, because in my humble opinion, it is one of the most underrated capital cities in the world. And when I was in India recently in fall, I kind of noticed there isn't as much familiarity with Ottawa. So I am here to spread the good word about Ottawa. So as students and families may know, Ottawa is a G7 capital city. So as a G7 capital, we are really internationally connected. But it also means that we have a really diverse economy and diverse industries. So we're not just a one industry town, but this level of diversity really helps create opportunities for students, depending or despite what their interests might be. So there are opportunities, of course, in government, but we also have really robust education industries, healthcare, transportation, arts and culture. We also have a booming high-tech industry. Actually, in preparing for this yesterday, I learned that Ottawa has the highest concentration of tech talent in all of North America, and that's even over San Francisco. So that's at 11.6% of our workers are in that tech space. So kind of a really surprising stat. So what this kind of diversity of industries mean is that if there's a dip in one industry or in the labor market one year, our economy is not collapsing. We can still be a vibrant and dynamic city. It also means that if you're a student who's interested in one career path, let's say accounting as the example, that is a job that can be applied in so many different workforces. You can be an accountant in a startup. How about in a bank, for a government agency, for the local hospital? So you can take your talents and your educations and apply them kind of across industries. Also, I know that there's a special interest these days coming out of India in things like agribusiness and food. We have the experimental farm in Ottawa. I don't know if you're familiar, Ganga, but it's this operating farm directly in the middle of the city, actually only minutes away from Carleton. So they're actually doing farming, but it's also a research institute run by the Agriculture Canada. So there's really active research happening in that field right in the middle of our city as well. So much going on. I could do a 3-hour presentation in Ottawa, but I'm not on Ottawa, but I'm not sure if there's appetite for that.
No, this is great. Jessica, Canam students have always appreciated Canadian universities' industry partnerships set up for epic internships, co-op adventures, and mind-blowing research collaborations. One of the collaborations you spoke about now. So could you elaborate a little more about all of that?
Yeah, sure. So Carleton has, depending on how you classify them, dozens or hundreds of these industry partners. So we work with partners on things like research and development. So to give you an example, we work with a company called Ericsson. They're in the telecommunications equipment field, industry or field. And they are not only one of our top co-op employers, which we can talk a little bit more about as well, but they've also helped develop and fund an R&D G5 research lab on our campus. We also work with a company called Briere, who are in the industry of long-term care. They conduct research in that field as well about seniors and aging. So they've also partnered with Carleton on research in that field. And that one's especially interesting because it's not just, so what they're working on specifically is technology to support virtual or mobile health services. Obviously became very popular during COVID, but we continue to see the benefits. And they're working with students in engineering, software, IT, of course, but also in social work and public policy because there's some advocacy to be done there. So, these are just two examples of how we're partnering with industries in terms of supporting our students in doing actual research and development. But then we also have hundreds, dare I say, thousands of partners that are hiring our students in co-ops, in practicums, all of these more kind of employability opportunities as well that are connected to their studies. So our partners are very important to us because that philosophy of hands-on learning, experiential learning, which is threaded through all of our programs, are really dependent and supported by industry partners both in Ottawa, Canada, and even internationally.
So is this for undergrad students as well?
Yeah, everything actually I've been speaking to have been applicable to undergraduate students. So I think that's something that we're really proud of, is that our undergraduate students will have these opportunities to get their hands dirty, so to speak, right from their first year, whether that's working in labs, engaging with their professors and faculties, and then just getting more and more deeply involved in that level of hands-on experience as they move through their program.
Okay. So Jessica, what makes Canadian education the unicorn in global education? How would you convince potential students that Canadian education is the pot of gold that they've been searching for?
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a multifaceted answer. And I think first I have to speak to what the allowances are with the Canadian Study Permit. And I'm sure that you've covered this on Ed Talks previously, but the ability for international students to work with their study permit, I think, is a huge draw to Canada. Obviously, we all know that international education can be expensive. So international students having the ability to work part-time, 20 hours a week off campus is a huge benefit. And in a city like Ottawa, where we have this really strong economy, there's lots of opportunities for part-time jobs for students to be able to help contribute to their finances, and then being able to work unlimited hours on campus as well. So that element of work, I think, is a real attraction to Canada. And then, of course, the post-graduation work permit. So the ability to, if you meet all the conditions, to stay up to 3 years after graduation on an open work permit to continue to gain experience, to experience Canada, and just build your resume, I think is another huge pull to Canada. Now, in terms of the actual institutions, I said that Carleton really has this philosophy of hands-on experiential learning, but it is something that, generally speaking, Canadian universities and colleges are really proud of and do really well. So when coming to Canada to experience our great Canadian education system, for the most part, I think students can feel confident that they will be supported in applying what they're learning in their classrooms, in their lectures, and their books to real, applicable, tangible employment opportunities and real world experiences. And the number one way that we do that is co-op. This is really was a uniquely Canadian program that I think is seeping out of Canada into other countries because it is such a fantastic program and because of its popularity. So I'm sure most people are familiar, but in 20 seconds or less, co-op is the opportunity to gain work experience related to what you're studying. Typically, when you are on co-op, you are not paying tuition other than some fees, but you're making a salary. So there is no better way to gain meaningful work experience before you graduate than co-op. So that is something that we do very, very well here in Canada. So to summarize that, I'd say the benefit of a Canadian education is that there is an eye to employability. We are doing our best to make sure that students can connect their academics to those skills necessary for employability upon graduation, which is why most of us are attending university in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Ooh.